we try to use parts of ourselves in the character to help find the truth of the character and the truthfulness of that moment. Started recording it. They were adamant that I needed to be absolutely flat, no emotion whatsoever. It wasn't until Witcher 3 that I started to get an inkling of how big this might be becoming, and they said, yeah, okay, we understand. We will cut that quest.
Now, coverage like no other. Bringing you videos from the event floor. You're watching convention coverage.
You good to go?
Hello. Been a really big fan of the series. My question is, what was it like starting off playing Geralt in the first game and all the way towards like the third game?
Right. Well, some of you may have been here on Friday as well, so forgive me if I go over some similar terrain. But for those of you who weren't here on Friday, the question is, what was it like being Geralt in the first game? And the answer, honestly, is it was just a job, which is the truth. I mean, it was a great job, and it was a job I was really pleased to have. Any of you, how many of you out there are freelancers of any kind? Work for yourself, basically? Oh, not as many as I thought there might be. Well, those of you who are freelancers know what I'm talking about. You know, a job is a job, you know. But what was cool about The Witcher and Witcher 1 was I love fantasy. I've always loved fantasy. I read The Hobbit when I was like 9. And I love Lord of the Rings, and I read The Dragon Riders of Pern, and you know, all these fantastic fantasy novels and stuff. And so I loved it. So it was another fantasy world that I got to be a part of, and that was thrilling. And one of the cool things about it was The Witcher, when we started recording Witcher 1, was not known in the West at all. It wasn't really known outside of Poland and some of the Eastern European countries. The books hadn't been translated into English yet. So I couldn't go to the books for any kind of reference work. So it was just what the developers could tell me about the world and the character. And I loved it. And there was some concept art, you know, there are drawings of Geralt and of certain monsters and things like that, and some of the characters like Triss and Yen. So I suppose the answer is it was just another job, but it was a cool job. That over the years, and because we recorded Witcher 1 in 2005, spring of 2005. So it's been a long journey on The Witcher, and you know, one of those experiences that becomes much more than you ever think it will be. So, does that kind of answer your question? Yeah?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi there. I just want to say thank you for coming out. Big fan of your work.
Oh, thank you very much.
Nope. Well, thank you, sir. I guess my question is I know Geralt's story is more or less wrapped up, but has CD Projekt Red ever considered bringing you back for some follow-up projects, or maybe even those outside of it, like, you know, how Netflix recently did an animated short on Vesemir, or maybe even one day if we could get you voicing like an audiobook of the Witcher series. Has anyone ever asked you about this kind of stuff?
People have mentioned the audiobook idea. The thing with the audiobooks, and I'd be happy to do one, but I think I would want to be approached by a producer who has a particular idea about it. The reason for that partly is because they've already been done by a very, very talented man named Peter Kenny. Peter Kenny did the audiobooks for, I think, all of the books in the Sapkowski series, and he's done a fabulous job. So it's already out there, and I feel a little bit like I don't want to step on Peter's toes, because he's a really nice guy and really talented. But if someone were to come to me with a particular concept that perhaps didn't step on Peter's toes, and offered something more to the table, other than just me, then I would certainly consider that. As for, did you ask about The Witcher 4 as well?
Well, it was kind of like it's the end of Geralt's story,
Yeah.
and I know he might not pop up again, but it's other work maybe related to him, or like I said, with the books.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, there have been things since Witcher 3 and the DLCs came out, you know, various things for Gwent, and there was a game the name of which is escaping me at the moment. It's centered on Queen Maeve.
Oh, Thronebreaker.
Thronebreaker, thank you. So there was work on that I did. I've done work on the Gwent stuff off and on. There was the 10-year anniversary. There was WitcherCon. So Geralt is kind of the gift that keeps on giving occasionally. But there will be a Witcher 4. They've said there's going to be one. The question for me, and for I suppose many fans of Geralt, is how much of it will focus on Geralt. I don't think much of it will. I think, as you said, they've wrapped up Geralt's story. So
It'll be interesting to see where it's set. It's kind of like the classic Lord of the Rings scenario, where most of the history of the world took place before, the Lord of the Rings did. And it's the same with The Witcher. You have like 2,500 years of history you could choose from.
absolutely, yeah. And the Netflix spin-off, Blood Origins. Does anybody know when that comes out? I have no idea when it comes out. I know it's filming now, or was filming anyways before Christmas. And I know this partly because part of your question was, are you going to do anything else related to The Witcher? And I was approached about playing a character in Blood Origins called, I think this is right, Uthgar One Nut.
Very Nordic sounding.
Yeah, and I was thrilled to be approached. In the end, I didn't get it. I didn't even get asked to audition for it, but I was checked for availability and interest. In the end, it went to a very talented actor and comedian named Dylan Moran. I don't know if any of you know him. He's a lovely guy, really lovely guy, very funny guy. He did a TV series in the UK called Black Books. He was the owner of the bookstore. And he's just a fabulously funny Irish comedian and a very good actor. So to lose out to the likes of Dylan Moran, I think I can live with,
It's good stuff all around. Well,
Yeah.
something ends, something begins. Thank you for your time, Doug.
Thank you very much. Is it Solid Snake?
Naked Snake.
Naked Snake.
One's Vietnam, one's future. I get it. There's like a dozen snakes. Don't worry. Have a good one.
It looks like it says 2022, but it doesn't give a month.
2022?
Yeah, but it doesn't give a month.
Doesn't give a month, yeah. I know they finished filming Blood Origins, or they were scheduled to finish filming in early December 2021. So they probably won't bring it out until at least May or June. They'll want to have all the episodes edited and ready to go.
Yeah, push them on out.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
So you mentioned being a fan of fantasy before being casted as Geralt.
Yeah.
What do you think was your favorite thing to come out of the fantasy genre before becoming Geralt?
Well, my personal favorite is Lord of the Rings, because I grew up with it. It was my thing, I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, and any other Dungeons and Dragons players out there? Yeah. How many of you are Rangers? That's my thing. That's my gig. I like to play half-elf Rangers.
You
I don't know
tree
why.
hugger.
And I'm always an archer, And I usually play women as well. I don't know what that says about my personal psychology, but there you go.
That's what D&D is all about.
Yeah, I think role play.
Yes.
Who knows? Anyways, Lord of the Rings, D&D. I mentioned Dragon Riders of Pern. You guys know Dragon Riders of Pern? Anne McCaffrey? Oh, if you don't, she's worth reading. Brilliant writer. The Dragon Riders of Pern series. I don't want to give too much away. You can still get them. I think they might be a little bit harder to find than they used to be. Wheel of Time, Robert Jordan.
Wheel of Time, yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what else? Anything by R.A. Salvatore.
Oh, all the was it Dragonlance?
Oh yeah.
Dragonlance series.
I
like
particularly
the
like
Forgotten
the what's his name? The Dark Elf.
Dritz Durden.
Yes, Dritz Durden. Loved those stories. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. I'll eat it up.
Cool, thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So I was wondering if you had any in particular favorite quotes or scenes from the games at all?
No.
If you could perform them? Oh, okay.
No, I don't. People ask me this a lot, obviously, especially at the autograph table. And it is an honest answer. I don't have a favorite quote. There are many quotes that I really like. I'm trying to think. There was one today that it popped into my head, and I went, oh, that is one I really like. I can't remember what it was now. There might be somebody out there who remembers it. But things like, the popular ones are winds howling, stuff like that. I should be closer to the mic for that. Winds howling. But there's lots of other quotes like, good luck on the path, Witcher. And, damn, you're ugly. So there's some good ones. I have to be reminded, actually, by people who love the game, some of the quotes that are out there. The "damn you're ugly" one I forgot was even there. I played the game. I just never really, it never clocked with me until someone at a convention, I think it was MomoCon a few years back, said, "Can you just write 'damn you're ugly'?" I went, "Did I say that? Who did I say that to?" So yeah. I hope that kind of answers your question. Yeah. It's like, there were like, I'm picking this number out of the air. There were like 50,000 lines in Witcher 3. How do you pick one?
Right. Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So I've been curious for a long time. If I remember correctly, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but there's a game called Soul Calibur, and they feature. And what's shocked me is that they choose Gerald from The Witcher to be their their guest fighter and such. And so
yeah.
I've been very curious. The original Witcher games and Soul Calibur are like very different, and when it comes to those two games and such, like the Soul Calibur is a bit more of a Japanese-esque game, while The Witcher is a Western game. So when you were having to do the voice lines in the Soul Calibur crossover as Gerald, did you have to approach voicing Gerald in Soul Calibur differently than you would in the Witcher series and such?
Good question. The answer is no and yes. And the reason I say that is because I was still playing Geralt. So I just had to be Geralt in Soul Calibur. But because of the nature of the Soul Calibur game, the way that the director asked me to deliver the lines differed a tiny bit to try and fit more into the pace of Soul Calibur. So, it was still Geralt, but they did direct me a little teeny bit more towards a kind of an anime delivery. I think that's how I would describe it anyways. But there was no real discussion about that. I noticed as we were recording that what I was being asked to do was very subtly different in terms of pace and intonation. Where with Geralt in the games, what I was often being asked was to flatten it down, reduce the amount of emotion in it. And in Soul Calibur, they were asking me quite often to give it a bit more color. So I did notice that there was a difference, but I think it's very, very subtle. Did anybody else notice a difference between who played Soul Calibur and Witcher? No, some of you say no, some of you say yes, yeah. So I think it's one of those things, if you tune into the difference, it's a very subtle difference, I think. But I've only played a little bit of the Soul Calibur game, so maybe it's a bigger difference than I realize. I don't know.
I see. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
What I wanted to know is, how awkward was it to film the sex scenes for The Witcher?
Lots of rehearsals. It's a funny one because and thank you for asking. One of the things that actors try to do when we're performing in whatever we're performing in is we try to make ourselves vulnerable. And what that means to us anyways is that we try to use parts of ourselves in the character to help find the truth of the character and the truthfulness of that moment, because that's the only way you can really do it. I describe it as, I used to say to my students, are you the Queen of England? Because I was teaching in England. They say, no, of course not, we're not the Queen of England. I say, can you be the Queen of England? And sometimes they would say yes, and I said, no, you can't. She exists. Her name's Elizabeth. She lives in Windsor Castle. You can't be the Queen of England. Can you behave as if you're the Queen of England? Yes, we can. But then to do that, you have to bring yourself to it. So this idea of vulnerability, using yourself. So the scenes, coming back to the good stuff. Something like that, I've been asked before, and the way I describe it, because you're in a booth, you're not with the other actor or actress, you're on your own behind a glass window, and the director, who may be male or female, or gender neutral, and the engineer, who's the same, they're on the other side of the glass, and you've been working with them and stuff, and it's all good, but when certain things become more personal, especially if you're trying to use bits of yourself to do that. So I describe it sometimes as being caught masturbating by your mom. How many have had that happen? Nobody's raising their hand except me. It's happened. Yeah, it's that kind of feeling where you're like, oh, ew. That's kind of what it feels like. Yeah, does that answer your question?
It answers it pretty well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
I know you said you played The Witcher 3. So, out of all of the creatures and beasts that you fought, which one is one of your favorites?
Well, I was asked a similar question on Friday, but it was just, what are your favorite monsters in The Witcher? And the first answer I gave was the Leshen, because it's just such a different monster from most other games. It's so very, interesting, unique. But what came to mind just now was are they called the three crones, the three hags, the ladies of the woods. They were a really interesting creature to fight. Partly because of the mythology behind them, but also because they were hard. They were really tough, or at least I found them really tough.
I'm still stuck on them, so.
Sorry?
I'm still stuck doing it.
You're stuck doing it. Anybody got any advice for her? How do you beat the crones? A lot of patience. That's not helpful.
I don't have patience. I have no patience.
Do not engage? Yes? Evasive maneuvers.
Okay.
Run, I say. Run. What? Attack one at a time. Okay, you got some ideas now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Go kick their butts.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Hello.
Hello.
So my question is more of like a D&D type question. Have you ever been or want to be approached by, like, say, Critical Role, Geek and Sundry, Dimension 20, all those other, D&D live stream people? Have you ever been in contact with them, being like, I want to play D&D with you guys?
I have.
Oh, okay.
I was basically told by Matthew Mercer that I have an open invitation to Critical Role.
Nice.
So that was really, really nice.
Nice.
I do like Critical Role. And I love Matt. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So I would love to do that. Unfortunately, I live in England.
Right, yeah.
So it's a little difficult for me to do that, and with the time difference, and also
Yeah.
just, I'd rather be in the studio with them.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so it hasn't happened. I won't say that it won't. And, if other streaming games do approach me, I would certainly be interested.
Okay.
I've done some charity one-shots
Okay.
playing the Witcher RPG.
Oh.
So I don't know if it's on YouTube. There's a couple different ones, and one of them, Matthew Mercer plays Dandelion to my Geralt, and a lovely, lovely opera singer named Kelly. She goes by Opera Geek on Twitch and on Twitter as well. She played Triss. And it was really fun because Kelly cosplays Triss really, really well. And Matthew, when I approached him, he was like, "Yeah, dude, I'd love to do that. Let's do that." And I said, "Look, you know, because I only managed to get a hold of him like 2 days before the stream. We were exchanging messages and stuff, but we weren't able to actually talk. So when we finally talked, I said, "Look, Matt, you know, if you want to cosplay as Dandelion, by all means do, but don't feel you have to. Please don't, because I'm not going to be cosplaying as Geralt." He was like, "Okay, cool. I won't worry about it then." And then he showed up, and he had a good cosplay for Dandelion. Yeah, and he was like, I said, "Damn, Mercer, what are you doing? How'd you do this in 2 days?" And he said, "Oh man, you can't believe how many shops I've run into in LA looking for the bits." So he's put some serious time into it.
Yeah, and I think he also, I can't remember which episode it was, but he did cosplay as, I think, Geralt for one of the Halloween episodes, I believe.
He did, yeah, and he did a really good job. He looked fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Hey.
Hi.
Wind's howling.
So my question is, has there been, through all the recordings you've done through the games, do you remember a line or something that you've done but never made it to the final product?
No, not specific lines, unless they were rude. Because I said this on Friday, sometimes in the booth as a voice actor, if you're starting to feel like you're flagging a little bit in terms of your energy, you might consciously or unconsciously just start pissing about, adding rude things onto the end of lines to make them funny and make the guys in the booth laugh, and then your energy reboots a little bit. So there's not a specific line, but I do remember there were. I'll give you an example. There was a quest that we deliberately deleted. But the way it happened was like this. I went in to record, and I didn't know what I was going in to record that day. And I went into the studio, and Kate Saxon, the director, she pulled me into the control room, and she said, "Doug, I really want to talk to you about this thing we're supposed to be recording today." And she told me what the storyline was, and I was horrified. And she said, "Well, me and James was the engineer, and they were the only ones outside of CD Projekt who knew what this storyline was. They both said to me, 'Doug, we'd really like to, with your permission and support, approach CD Projekt and tell them we don't want to do this.' And we did, and they said, 'Yeah, okay, we understand. We will cut that quest.' So that didn't end up in the game at all. And just to give you an idea what it was, I don't remember the specifics. They were pretty horrible. But they involved pedophilia. So, yeah, it was one of those it was a deliberate didn't make it in. But what's great about that event, I think, and that story is it's art, it's collaborative, and everybody in a collaborative art needs to be on board enough to believe in what is going to be put out into the public domain. You know, there's censorship and stuff, governmental censorship and things, and that's all designed to protect people. So it probably would have been censored anyways. But I think it was a matter of principle, that this isn't something we would want to we don't want someone else to decide that it needs to be censored. This has to be not there. So, yeah, but no specific lines. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are lines that just didn't make it in. I don't know what they are.
So, but going back to earlier what you said, where like sometimes you'll just say stuff that's not on script just because.
Yeah.
Were they very strict? Like, these are the lines you have to say, don't, add your own thing?
Well, it's always don't add your own thing. It's not an improvised thing. There's a script that's been very carefully written and very carefully translated from Polish into English. And you have to say the words. but like I said, sometimes, you're in there, you're doing it, and something just strikes you, and you're saying something to Triss or Yen or Zoltan or whatever it is, and then at the end of the sentence, you just feel a bit silly, and you add a few swear words or something really rude, just for the heck of it, and it's going to be cut, and the engineers go in there, right, I'll just edit that out right now. So, yeah.
All right, well, thanks.
Thank you.
I didn't know to cut you off. I'm sorry.
I didn't know if I was done either. I mean, if you let me go, I'll just talk all day,
All right, well, thank you anyway.
Thank you very much. Nice cosplay.
Hello.
Hello.
Also, first of all, I saw that, call out that you did with me earlier.
The who?
Look, a bus.
Yes, throwing me right under the bus.
But it was a brilliant cosplay. You
I
deserve the
appreciate
recognition.
it. I didn't really expect to win anything. I just kind of got forced in by my friends and some of the people in Artist Alley.
It was because of your leather work.
I tried. Oh my God, 3 months of work. Jesus.
It was awesome. Yeah. Anybody who didn't see it, it was truly, just awesome. Handmade chainmail, hand-worked leather, beautiful stuff.
To be fair, the quilting was the worst part. So my question is, well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we're all super big fans here in Sacramento, and we appreciate you coming out here. And my question is, there's a whole bunch of characters in the Witcher universe that Geralt meets along the way, finding Ciri and all that jazz. Did you have any particular characters that you liked Geralt interacting with? And why is it Regis?
Well, Regis is like his buddy, and so that was always cool. When we got to Blood and Wine, it was really interesting to play that relationship because he doesn't have that kind of relationship with most of the other people. He has romantic relationships with women. He has, mentor relationship with Vesemir, brotherhood relationship with his fellow Witchers, and a kind of a funny brotherhood relationship with Dandelion. I think well, aside from Roach, which I think is a beautiful relationship that he has, with another character in the game. I think one of the interactions I really liked, and I'm going to call it a relationship, even though in some ways it wasn't, but it was Johnny. Do you remember Johnny?
Oh, the Godling?
The Godling.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a beautiful little bit of story.
Can you tell I know too much about this game?
Yeah, so I think that was one I really enjoyed because I think partly for me because the idea of the Godling, and when I was shown the character art for Johnny, I was like, oh, interesting. That's not what came to mind when we were talking about this. I just thought it was a really interesting relationship that they ended up having. So I think that's one that I don't think about very often. I don't think most people don't think about it very often, but it is a really interesting relationship in the game.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
All right. Well, you mentioned earlier how by the time you just started Geralt, the books haven't been translated. You knew very little about the character and the story. And I'm curious, actually, I'm going to call my friend out. My friend was curious about whether, as you went along through the years in the games, how did that perception of Geralt, and maybe even the way you played him, changed?
It's an interesting question because it holds within the answer a lot of concepts, I think. We all know that Geralt is described as being emotionless, yeah? We all also know that he isn't, I think. That's my perception anyways, and I think most people I've talked to agree that he is not an emotionless creature. My own take on Geralt was always that the trial of the grasses doesn't so much remove emotion from the person who becomes a Witcher. It's more than it's an ordeal that forces them to have to undertake life in a particular way. You could say a masculine way, although masculine is a concept that we're all kind of grappling with anyways, masculine and feminine. But in Witcher 1, when we started recording it, they were adamant that I needed to be absolutely flat, no emotion whatsoever. For an actor, that's anathema. That doesn't make any sense. as what we deal with is in human emotion and behavior. Now, arguably, Geralt isn't human anymore in some ways, nor is he monster, which is part of the joy of Geralt and all the Witchers.
And at some point, I think his own struggle as well.
Yeah, yeah, and so when we were recording Witcher 1, it was, for me, I was always semi-consciously and semi-unconsciously pushing that emotional barrier and being told to pull it back. And I think along the way, what happened is my desire to give Geralt an emotional life that he deserved and I felt had, especially with the women in his life, and his close friends, my desire and effort to do that, whether it was conscious or unconscious, either inspired or infected or otherwise assisted the writers as we moved through the games to give him more of that emotional life in the writing. So if you play through the games from Witcher 1 to Witcher 2 to Witcher 3 to the DLC, you'll see Geralt become a very different character in some respects, in particular in relation to his emotional availability. And by the time we get to Blood and Wine, his relationship with Regis in particular has an awful lot of emotion in it. So yeah, my perception of Geralt changed throughout, and I think that CD Projekt's perception changed. And now this is me, I don't know what CD Projekt would say about this, but I felt that it became an unconscious collaboration between us to give him the emotional life that they wanted to deny him at the beginning. And yet still keep him in that emotionless kind of realm. And I've always felt that it wasn't emotionless. It was that in order to do the job that he has to do, he has had to learn to squish his emotions down. He cannot be ruled by emotion or he will die. So that's where I place him in my thoughts. And that's where I said perhaps it's a masculine kind of thing, because there is this popular thought that men squish their emotions down. Women do it too, they just do it in different ways, and it comes out in different ways when it does come out. So, and that's a great generality, so, I'm aware of that as well. But I think that kind of answers your question. Yeah, he did change for me, and my perception of him changed as well, because the more room I was given, the more I took. So, he became more and more and more emotional in my mind. And
it definitely felt like, just as a side note, like Geralt almost emotionally matured throughout. Like in the beginning, he was so set on, I don't have any emotions. I am a stone cold Witcher, and there's nothing else. And by the end, he got really much more comfortable with being vulnerable, which was an interesting change to see. And I think since you say that that's something that you already had subconsciously, I think maybe CD Projekt felt that and allowed for more room little by little.
And I think that's also a reflection on the growing maturity of the writers at CD Projekt Red.
Sure.
As they got to know Geralt more and more and felt more confident with his journey. And perhaps, I don't know what experience they had prior to writing for Geralt and for The Witcher in general, but perhaps they might have been young writers as well, or young in career, not necessarily young in age, but some of them may have been early in their days relatively of writing for games. So as they understood better and gained experience and developed confidence, they put more of that into their writing as well, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty of art as well, You have to do stuff and experience stuff and put stuff on paper or put it into your guitar or your trumpet or whatever it is, or into your dance moves. And as you discover what works and what doesn't, you gain that confidence, that maturity, and that maturity shows.
Yeah.
So I think we see that in the games.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. That was really enlightening.
Thank you.
I was going to ask, when you worked on the very first game of Witcher, do you think that it would progress to what it is now in the Witcher series?
No. No, I did not. When I did Witcher 1, like I said a little bit earlier, it was just another job, a job that I wanted, that was great to have, that was in a fantasy world that I enjoyed learning about, but it was just another job. I've done lots and lots and lots of games, and like all art, You know, you do your thing, and then you put it out into the world, and you have to let it go, and let it become whatever it becomes for other people. So that's what I did with Witcher 1. You know, I recorded it, I did the best I could. CD Projekt put my work into their work, and it went out into the public domain, and people loved it or didn't love it, and everything in between. So for me, Witcher 1 was just another game out there being experienced by people. And it wasn't until Witcher 3 that I started to get an inkling of how big this might be becoming. But even then, it wasn't until about 6 months after Witcher 3 came out that I clocked that this was big. So, and this is partly because during the whole of recording the Witcher series, I was teaching full-time in university. I was teaching acting. I was the course leader of BA Honors Acting course in Bournemouth. And I was very, very busy with that. I had lots of students to look after, lots of staff to look after, lots of budgets to administrate. So I was busy, and squeezing Witcher and other games into it as well was on top of that. So thinking about where a game might be going or where a game might be wasn't even on my agenda, really. I was just like, yeah, it's out there. And nobody really came looking for me. Now, people go looking for the voice actors, but when Witcher 3 came out, people didn't really go looking for the voice actors so much. Or at least nobody came looking for me, so I didn't have a clue how big it might be becoming. I was focused on other things on a day-to-day basis. And it took a guy named Robert Purchase from Eurogamer who got in touch with me out of the blue one day, said, hey man, I love The Witcher. I'd really like to write an article about you and The Witcher and your experience of it. Can I come down to Bournemouth and interview you? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, you know. It was the end of term, just before Christmas. I was exhausted because I'd been working really hard. He came in, we sat down in one of the tutorial rooms, and we had a 2-hour chat. And during this chat, I started to get a sense from him of just how big The Witcher had become. And at the end of that chat, I went back to my office, and I turned on my computer, and I started Googling Witcher 3, and I was like, oh my God, what is going on out there? I just hadn't clocked it. So yeah, it was a funny journey, and I'm still sometimes surprised by, you know, the level of love and support for the game and for the Witcher world. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, definitely. Oh, thank you so much.
I tend to give long-winded answers, but there you go.
Hello again.
Hello again.
I have another question when it comes to The Witcher. You said you played the games. I was wondering, while you were playing through, was there ever a time where you sort of heard yourself and sort of went, they went with that take, or that could have done another take?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, mostly when I play The Witcher, I haven't played for a while now because I've been trying to catch up on other games, but mostly when I play The Witcher, I don't hear myself, particularly when I'm doing a really good job. But occasionally, I will hear a line, and I will have this internal alarm goes off, and the alarm says, oh, Doug, you could have done that better. It's the inner critic. Every artist has one. Every person has one. But you know, for the artists out there, you know what I'm talking about. You know, it's that inner critic that doesn't let you be satisfied with your own work. Or is it? Because maybe I could have done that line better. I think that as artists, as people, but as an artist myself, I recognize that there's a particular thing that artists do where they strive for something that they hear in their head or see in their mind or feel in their heart. And the achievement of that in reality is often just not possible, or not possible yet. And we hate that because we want it to be possible. We want to achieve that. That's kind of what we're all striving for, is that not perfection. It's not a perfection thing. It's this is my truth. This is my vision kind of thing. And when you hear that vision become a hobgoblin, you know, it's kind of like,
That actually sounded pretty inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for coming and saying hi to me and being here and supporting SacAnime and for just being awesome people. Enjoy the rest of the convention today, guys.
Oh, give me a round of applause for Mr. Doug Cockle. Gerald.